Hello friends, and welcome to another video. I'm Miley if you're new here, and today I'm so excited to share with you all of the books that I rated 5 stars that I read in 2021. Okay, you guys, so I recently discovered this app called Goodreads. I'm sure probably all of you are like rolling your eyes because it's been around for forever and so many people use it, but I just now started using it. But I went ahead and put in all the books that I read in 2021 and rated them all. So I thought it would be fun to share with you what books I rated the highest, what books I gave 5-star reviews to, so that if you are interested in any of them, you can rest assured that they are fabulous per my recommendation. So I think I have 11 books that I rated 5-star, which is a lot. I read almost 30 books this year. I think I ended at like 27 or 28. Let's just jump right in to the first one on my list. This is in no particular order, by the way. I rated all of these 5 stars. So I'm just gonna share them as I remember them. Okay, so first things first, there are a few Bridgerton books. I've got an extensive rating and review video on the whole Bridgerton series that you can check out right up here. I'll link it if you want a much more in-depth look. But for now, I'm just going to skim past the 4 or 5 Bridgerton books that I rated 5-star review and just tell you a little bit about what I liked about each of them. But I don't want to take up too much time in this video talking about Bridgerton because I read a lot of it in 2021. Okay, so the first one that I read that I rated 5-star was The Viscount Who Loved Me, which is my very favorite Bridgerton book. It's the second book about the oldest son, Anthony, and his love interest, Kate, who is maybe my favorite character in all of Bridgerton. I just love her. I love her feisty, fiery, like unafraid, unapologetic personality, and how it totally like is a hate relationship with Anthony at the beginning, and they just like dagger eyes each other, but then it slowly builds and they come together and form this deep love. Ugh, I just love this story. I love The Viscount Who Loved Me. Such a good Bridgerton book. Fantastic. My favorite one, 10 out of 10. Go read that one. But I also gave An Offer from a Gentleman, which is the third Bridgerton book about Benedict. I can't remember what his name is. Benedict? I don't know. His love story with Sophie, who I also love Sophie so much. She's basically the complete opposite from Kate, but I love them both. And this is very, very classic Cinderella story, essentially, with a little bit of a twist. And oh, I just love that one too. Okay, another Bridgerton book I gave 5 stars to was When He Was Wicked, the Francesca book. Francesca might be my favorite Bridgerton. I love Francesca. And her book is much different than the other Bridgerton books. It's much more serious, much more, there's lots of grieving and death and kind of just a little bit darker and more serious themes throughout the book. And I really like that. It's a good point in the series to kind of shake it up and give us something totally different. And her story is just so compelling. And I think it's because of her character. She is a very stoic and serious and independent person, but also can be funny and silly. And oh, I just love her. She's a different kind of Bridgerton from all the rest. And her story was just so interesting. Definitely go read that one too. And then the last Bridgerton book that I gave a 5-star review to was It's in His Kiss, which is Hyacinth's book. And I love her too. She is, you kind of roll your eyes at Hyacinth, but then you're like, no, you're freaking awesome. I love her because she doesn't just talk the talk, she walks the walk, you know? She like puts on this really like walls up, nobody can mess with me, tough girl persona, but she can back it up. Like she'll take somebody down, and I love that about her. I might relate to that a little bit, but I love her story. It's got a bit of a mystery in it. They have to sleuth around and it's kind of a whodunit. And that's a really cool, fun, different element that you don't really see in many of the other Bridgerton books. So that was kind of a fun, different take. Still got, of course, all the classic romance that Bridgerton does so well. So that one's really great too. And again, the whole series, read it all. It'll take you like, well, if you're me, it will take you like 10 days or maybe like 2 weeks. I bet it took me 2 weeks to read those. The next books that I gave 5 stars that are part of a series were The Book of Life, which is the 3rd installment in the All Souls or the Discovery of Witches series, however you want to call it. It's got like 5 names, which that one is the third. It's the conclusion to Diana and Matthew's story. It's one of the best series finales I've ever read. It wrapped up the story so well. It was incredibly compelling the whole way through. The second book is a little iffy in the All Souls series, but the third just completely makes up for it. I loved it so much. It kept me on the edge of my toes reading the entire time. It had its own conflict while continuing to wrap up the bigger themes of the entire series. I could not speak more highly of this closing installment of the series. It is so well done. And again, I did a video on the entire All Souls series, which you can watch right up here. I'll link it if you want a much more in-depth look at that series. But then another All Souls book that I rated 5 stars, not the first one, not the second one, but actually the 4th book, which is kind of a one-off book and not part of the trilogy of All Souls. It's called Time's Convert, and it came out maybe in like 2019. It came out fairly recently, and it's Marcus's story. It peppers in the other characters as well too, but it's mostly about Marcus and Phoebe, and I loved reading this book. It was a fun, indulgent, very epilogue feeling giant book, and just a lot more character analysis and a great continuation of this story. I love the characters. That's why I read the All Souls series and got so sucked into it, because the characters are so fabulous. Marcus was not one of my favorites in the trilogy, but after reading this book, he is one of my very favorites. His story is so interesting. You get to learn so much more about his character and who he is, his history, why he is the way he is. I just loved everything about this book. It was great, and I also gave it 5 stars. So definitely go check out that All Souls video and read that series. It's worth it. It's a really great series. Another 5-star book that I read this year, which no one will be surprised here, but it was Homework, which is Julie Andrews' second memoir. It's the memoir specifically of her Hollywood years. I've read Home, her first book, her first memoir, all about her early years in vaudeville and her childhood, and oh, that one is so fascinating and wonderful too. But this one was exactly what I needed to read when I read it. It is so different than what you think it's going to be. She talks a lot about her Hollywood years, yes, and you learn some really juicy like inside information about the Broadway shows and the movies she did and what the behind the scenes looked like with different famous actors at the time. But more than that, you get the story of her humanity and her life, her family, how she dealt with being a mother and managing home while trying to work and be a famous actress. It talked about her trials and tribulations with both of her marriages, her successes, her failures. It talked so much about money and the struggle to always have more and more. It talked about the intricacies and the complications of her relationships with her parents and the rest of her extended family, her siblings. It just was the most subtly human, awesome story. It was Julie Andrews. And she was so real and so raw in it without being like in your face or feel sorry for me about the bad parts or feel awesome for me about the good parts. It was just life. Like, it was her story of life at that time, and she was just so real about it. It was so stinking relatable. You guys, this book, it was amazing. Okay, the next 5-star book was called We Were the Lucky Ones. It's about a Polish family at the beginning of World War II, going through the Holocaust. It basically takes the whole family through the entire war, and you follow the parents. You follow, I think it's 4 siblings, adult siblings, and their spouses and some of their kids. And it's a really fascinating look at how they went from a very lavish, very successful life, and you see them all get separated, all go different ways. Some of them end up in concentration camps, some of them end up in work camps, some of them end up in hiding, some of them end up, in a different country fleeing. And it was just such a fascinating look at how this family got so divided and the kind of insane decades-long impact that the war had on them. And it has such a fabulous, amazing, incredible twist at the end that is worth reading the whole book for 100%. So stinking good. Definitely recommend it. Okay, another series that I started this year, didn't finish yet, is the Veronica Speedwell series. Now, I hadn't ever heard of this. It was actually a recommendation, I think, from my cousin Heather. We read a lot of the same kind of books. It is unlike any series I've ever read, actually. It's almost got a Sherlock Holmes feel. She's basically a female, I forget what they call her, but it's like a butterflyologist. Like, she studies butterflies and goes on all these crazy expeditions to hunt butterflies. But you don't really ever go with her to do that because she also solves mysteries, and she's also a hardcore feminist, and I freaking love her. But I actually didn't rate the first Veronica Speedwell book a 5-star. I only rated that one 4 because it was a little hard to get into at the very beginning. So I will say definitely push through because it's worth it. I read the second book. It's called A Perilous Undertaking. They all have very similar titles that are also kind of long and convoluted. But the second book is really where the series gets its wings. It is so great. It's basically got 2 mysteries. You find out the more personal intricacies of Veronica's life and who she actually is, who she was born as, but then it's peppered with the actual mystery of the book, which is about kind of like jilted love, the wrong person being condemned for something that they didn't actually do, and they're trying to solve the real mystery before time runs out to save that innocent person. It is so good. I read it in maybe a day and a half because I just simply couldn't put it down. And because I loved it so much, I actually asked for the rest of the books in the series, which I believe there are 7 total, for Christmas, and I got them all. So I'll be doing probably a Veronica Speedwell full book ranking and review video here in the next few months, I would guess, when I finish the series, because I really love it, and I don't know of a series out there that's just like it. The next book I read that I gave 5 stars is a book called The Forgotten Garden by Kate Morton. And if you've heard me talk about her before, she is an amazing Australian author who has a lot of very successful one-off books. I love her. She's one of my very favorite authors. I've read all of her books now. The Forgotten Garden was the last on my list, and I rated it 5 stars. I think I've rated all of her books that I've read 5 stars because they're all that good. She has a really unique writing style. You follow multiple generations of people that slowly you kind of unearth how they're connected. It always is some sort of mystery that you don't really figure out until the very end, when all the puzzle pieces that you've been reading and reading and reading about and wondering about fit together in a nice, beautiful packaged bow. It's mixed with really, really great characters, and it's just a really intriguing story. This one specifically is about a little girl who's adopted by a family after being found alone on a ship, and you unravel the mystery of that little girl through the eyes of her granddaughter years and years later as she's dying of dementia, and the granddaughter figures out the mystery of her life. Any Kate Morton book is amazing. The Clockmaker's Daughter is where you should start because that one's the very best one. But man, this one was a great story. Kate Morton never disappoints. She's fantastic, and I loved this book so much. Okay, and then the last 2, I promised you some more Bridgerton. So I started reading this year the Roxby, I think that's how you say it, sorry if that's wrong, the Roxby or Roxby series, which is a series of 4 books by the same Bridgerton author, and there's loose Bridgerton connections with family relations and things like that. And I read all 4 of the Roxby books. I didn't rate them all 5 stars. I rated 2 of them 5 stars. The others, I believe I gave 4 stars. So it's definitely worth reading the full Roxby series. They're really great, and I love the characters in them. But specifically, the ones that I think are the best are, the first one is The Other Miss Bridgerton, which is about Poppy and her love interest, basically sort of about pirates and being like almost Beauty and the Beast-esque, captured and held on a ship, but the guy who's capturing her is not actually a pirate, and he's actually an undercover secret agent working for the crown, so it's not bad that he's holding her captive. That one might need some further thought. Anyway, it's really good. They fall in love on the ship, and turns out identities are revealed, and they're connected in more ways than they know, and it's just juicy story. Love that one. And then the other one that I read of the Roxby series that I definitely gave 5 stars is maybe my favorite of the series, which is Because of Miss Bridgerton, which is about the oldest sister, Billy Bridgerton, who is cousins of the Bridgertons that we know and love, and her love interest, who is the closest family friends that they have. They grew up together. It's very much like a, childhood love story, definitely adversarial, very, very similar in structure to Kate and Antony's relationship, which is probably why I love it so much. They grew up definitely butting heads and not really liking each other, and have grown into their adulthood just carrying those same feelings, but slowly start to connect with each other, and turns out that they actually have more in common than they think, and it turns into a fantastic love story. So, I love this book. This is definitely my favorite in the Roxby series, and I love Billy Bridgerton. She's a very big, like, tomboy, but still like leader of the pack, like takes on all the responsibility of her family and takes her job as the oldest sister very seriously. She's just a fantastic character. I love her so much. She's very Jo and Little Women-esque to me, and I just love her character. But that one is definitely the best of the Roxbys, but Poppy's is also really good too. So, and the other two are great as well, but they're not as good. Okay, that is it. I think those are all of my 2021 5-star books. I read a lot of good ones this year, a lot of series. I don't normally read this many series in one year, but I've just been on a series kick recently. Ever since Bridgerton, I'm like, give me more of this. So I am going to continue my series reading in 2022. I've got a pretty lofty goal of 40 books. I think I can do it. And if I don't do it, I'll get close, and I'll of course keep you guys with me along the way. I'm sure lots more book videos are to come, so let me know down below if you like them and if you want me to read any specific books to review. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video if you want more book content, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!